This Christmas, though, Eddie had already arranged to give Sean the one thing he'd been hunting for as long as he could remember. They had read all the books, reliving history from before the Revolution, looking for clues, all the while building up their charter business together. And on top of that, Sean had fought to keep up the big old house his grandfather had built. Eddie smiled suddenly. Yes, they were friends. And he was pleased as all get out, to think that he'd gotten the best Christmas gift in the world for Sean. But for the moment, he was happy to bask in that knowledge and wait for the holiday, only a few weeks away now. For now, he was glad he'd accepted this charter, even if his passenger was more than a bit strange, all muffled up in a huge sweater, and wearing a trench coat that looked like it was at least one size too big. John Alden, he'd said his name was, without so much as a smile. It was certainly a damned good name for a New Englander, and Eddie wondered if the guy was descended from his Pilgrim namesake. You certainly wouldn't think so from his appearance. Short, with a funny mustache, oversized, heavy-framed glasses, and a husky way of talking. He reminded Eddie of a terrier, the kind of feisty little dog that wouldn't accept the limits of its own size and would challenge a mastiff. But the terrier's money was as good as anyone's, and Alden had wanted a 2-hour cruise around the little islands out past the Sound and into the bay. No problem. Eddie knew those islands like the back of his hand, knew the secrets of those islands. He wondered if this strange little man knew anything of the history, if he was familiar with any of the old Rhode Island tales of daring revolutionaries. He certainly didn't seem to know much about sailboats. You chartered a boat like the Sea Maiden because she was a beauty, because she was sleek, because you could unfurl her sails on a day like today with this gorgeous breeze and fly. And what the hell had this guy wanted? For Eddie to drop the sails and run the motor. Oh well, it took all kinds to make the world. Eddie glanced at his watch. He'd been cruising slowly around the islands for a while now, and it was time to get back. He meant to see Sean off and enjoy the party. Kat was already home in preparation for Christmas. It was sweet to imagine her pleasure when she saw the gift he had for Sean come Christmas. Kat would play the piano and sing the traditional Christmas songs, along with some she'd written herself. They would all join in, him with his worse-for-wear baritone and Sean with his tenor. And Bridie, despite her age, with her clear soprano. They would make hot Irish coffee, slathered with whipped cream, and Sean and Amanda, the trophy wife, would regale them all with tales of their trip to Ireland. But first he had to get back for the big send-off party. Where had his passenger gotten to? Eddie figured he would just start back, since the guy must have gone forward for the view and the helm was aft. The guy wasn't in the cabin, that much he knew, because he'd locked the forward hatch. He might have taken the Sea Maiden out by himself, but he wasn't a fool. No stranger was getting into the cabin by himself. There were too many official papers and personal belongings in there, since the Sea Maiden was the favored vessel for most of them. "I'm heading back now," Eddie called, hoping John could hear him. "Like I told you, I've someplace to be tonight." He needed to get back, take a shower. This was going to be a proper bon voyage party, and he planned to show that uppity trophy blonde that he cleaned up well. "Hey! Did you hear me?" Nothing. He squinted. The blue was already leaving the sky. Night came early to New England in winter. Like a massive bird's wing, it swooped in, a single shadow falling silently across the sky. He started to rise, then sank back in his seat, a perplexed frown knitting his brow. "What the hell?" he muttered. At first he was confused. Hell yes, this guy was strange, but... What? Once again he began to stand. Eddie wasn't a small guy. He wasn't muscle-bound, but he'd worked the sea all his life, and he was no weakling. He even carried a small gun, which was in the cabin. And nothing had prepared him for this. He felt the air move as the man did, but he didn't have even a split second to brace himself against the onslaught. He had barely begun to rise before he was falling. The icy chill of the water numbed the searing pain. He was falling into the darkness of the ocean, but something was billowing up in front of him, like a shadow, only it was red.